Hello, dear parents. I'm Professor Masayo Abe, a Japanese designer who lives in Germany.
Hello, dear parents. I am Wendy Chua, an educator and design anthropologist from Singapore. This semester, we are conducting the new ALP Design Thinking program to nurture a young generation of sustainable advocates in cooperation with the teachers of Yuhua Secondary School under the Learning by Design program by the Design Singapore Council. We call this program the Carbon Reuse Lab, which aims to promote a zero-waste culture at Yuhua Secondary School. Over 6 weeks, the students learn the fundamentals of sustainability issues from a designer's perspective by practicing various design exercises. The program comprises 2 lessons on material literacy, 2 lessons on design anthropology, and 2 lessons on the Carbon Reuse Lab project.
In the last 2 weeks, you may have wondered why your child was collecting plastic packages at home and bringing them to school. Well, the packages were collected as a research artifact of today's mass consumption society. They are to learn about plastic material and its various chemical formulas. They were carefully observed, and students learned how professional designers analyze plastic artifacts and its recyclability.
Today, the students have just completed the first lesson in design anthropology, which traces the history of reuse culture through ethnographic interviews. The students learned its basics and conducted interviews with their teachers to learn their stories about the culture of reuse before plastic became common in our lives. After the lesson, for homework, the students must interview one of their own family members, which is you. This can be either the parents or grandparents or any other family members or friends who are much older than the students. The students will learn more about stories from the reuse culture that once existed in Singapore or your country of origin a long time ago. And so now we need your support and cooperation. We would like to invite you to share with your child your story about the culture of reusing everyday items that you experienced when you were young, or any stories that you have heard from your parents or your grandparents.
Story should be video recorded or voice recorded. It can be short. 2-3 minutes long will be fine. The students submit the recorded files to the class Padlet. In the lesson next Thursday, they will analyze the uploaded stories to gain insights into reuse cultures in the past and their applicability to the future.
Your personal storytelling is important to enrich your child's learning in this program. It can help them understand the culture of reuse that existed before they were born. They should know what items were reused, by whom, when, and how in everyday life. This understanding is crucial for them to envision a sustainable future that can be supported by new reuse cultures that they can now imagine. You may hear about the stories shared today by teachers from your child, and here we can also share with you our stories which were presented during the lesson. The first story of reuse is about the kimono fabric shared by Professor Masayo about the reuse culture in Japan 200 years ago. And the second story is what I have heard from my mother about Singapore in the 1960s that I now share with my 4-year-old daughter. And we appreciate your cooperation and look forward to hearing your story in our next lesson. Hello, Masayo. As one who profoundly understands both Japanese and European cultures, I was wondering if you could kindly share some details about your background. When and where were you born, and where did you grow up?
I was born in Tokyo in 1962 and grew up there. I moved to Italy in 1990 and to Germany in 2005. So now I have lived in Europe for 34 years in total, a bit more than half of my life.
You once mentioned about the culture of reuse during the Edo period in Japan. Could you share the details of that story? When, where, and how it was exactly?
Well, it was a story of about 200 years ago. It was about the culture of reuse in Edo City, which is Tokyo today. At that time, Edo was the largest city in the world, with about 1 million inhabitants. Reusing kimono was impressively essential to the everyday life of the metropolis. Kimono was common fashion in Japan, but ready-made kimono was unavailable. It was something to be tailored. So if one wanted a new kimono, one had to go to the shop, which is selling silk or cotton fabric for kimonos. In the shop, one had to select the fabric one liked and had to purchase it. After that, one asked a professional tailor to make it a kimono. The kimono making process is truly remarkable. Every part of a kimono was crafted with zero fabric waste, cutting all sections straight and sewing one kimono out of one roll of the kimono fabric. However, in the feudal era, only the super wealthy upper class had the privilege of buying such fabrics and owning new kimonos. Once their new kimonos became outdated, second-hand brokers stepped in and displayed them at the second-hand kimono shops. Alongside the Kanda River, many of the second-hand kimono shops were located, which attracted people from all districts of Edo City. The commoners always purchased their kimonos from these second-hand shops.
Wow, it means all kimono were reused, right?
Yes, they were. What fascinating is that during those times, there was no stigma attached to buying second-hand clothes. The journey towards full-scale reuse begins with buying a kimono from such a second-hand shop. Once second-hand kimono became old and worn out, its usable parts were remade into smaller kimonos for children. And when these children's kimono became worn out, they were transformed into washable diapers. And once these diapers are no longer needed, they were repurposed as cleaning cloths. And when these cleaning cloths became worn out, they were used as a kindling for a fire in a kitchen stove. When one kindles a fire with that, ashes from burning are produced. Then special traders come into play to buy the ashes, which can be sold for washing and fertilizing the soil. What was once a beautiful kimono can still be useful and merchandised even after being reduced to the ashes. Since kimonos were made natural fabrics, they were fully biodegradable and did not contribute to pollution, even after multiple reuse and recycling. That was the sustainable practices of Edo City 200 years ago.
What an incredible story of how life was like a long time ago, before the invention of synthetic fabrics.
Yes, it was. It may not be feasible for us to fully adopt the method used in Edo City into our daily lives, but I'm quite convinced that we can still learn invaluable lessons and insights from their method, particularly on the potential of reusing the clothes made of natural fabrics.
Can you guess what this is?
There's a cooking pot, Mommy.
No, this man is carrying something important. This is a night soil bucket. The man and the buckets play an important role in the waste disposal of our city. In the 1890s, Singapore had the night soil bucket system. It was a common method of waste disposal in Singapore. It was very simple and transported by workers. And how about this? Can you guess what this is?
A house.
No, it was a toilet we used in the 1960s. The toilet used to be just a wooden plank over the night soil bucket. You have to be careful not to slip and fall. Every week, the night soil worker will come and collect the buckets and carry them to these blue night soil trucks. It was hard and dirty work, so we must appreciate these workers. Can you imagine if they did not work for 2 weeks? It will be a nightmare. Guess where the trucks are going now?
The forest.
Yes, the truck will carry the night soil to the plantation, where it will nourish the land as natural fertilizer. Nothing goes to waste. Of course, today our waste disposal system is invisible, running through hidden pipes and tanks until it is treated and released into the sea. But even if we do not see the waste disposal process, we must appreciate how important it is and remember the zero waste spirit of the old times.